Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, mona maliwanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids' teacher, their guidance counselors, their librarian, their principal, and also please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Sally Alexander. She is here to celebrate her middle grade novel, The Lost Colors. Before we invite Sally into the studio, we want to let you know that this episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Candlewood Press, publishers of Namaste is a Greeting. This is a beautiful picture book written by Suma Subramanyam and illustrated by Sandhya Prabhat. If you're a regular listener to the Reading with Your Kids podcast, you've heard me say Namaste in the greeting over and over and over again. So you probably figured out that Namaste is a greeting. It literally means I bow to you. But the word Namaste has many different meanings. Not only is it a greeting or something you might say during yoga, but it is a word to express the deepest of emotions. Namaste calms your heart when things aren't going right. Namaste is saying you matter. That's why I use it, because you matter. Discover many of this word's meanings with a young girl as she navigates a bustling market with her mother in the sweet and delightfully illustrated picture book. Namaste is a Greeting is available now wherever you buy books. And, you know, I really think you should check it out. It's beautiful. Imagine teaching your child the word Namaste and giving them the power to calm themselves and reminding them each and every day that they matter to you. Namaste is a Greeting, brought to you by our friends at Candlewood Press. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by our friend Kelly Sanchez and her book, Skipper, Friend or Foe, a distracting mystery within life's traumatic events. It's a great middle grade novel, and it is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Michael is leading what seems to be a pretty normal life for a happy 12-year-old boy. And then the unthinkable happens. His mom gets cancer. Michael's dad has to take a job out of town because the treatments are so expensive. It's the only way they can afford her treatments. Suddenly, Michael is no longer a carefree kid. He's now his mom's caretaker. When a new friend convinces Michael to follow a mysterious adventure, Michael learns that it is not all up to him to take care of his mom. That it's okay to have fun, even through some of life's toughest issues. This is a really powerful book and a great way to open up conversations with your kids about a myriad of subjects. Check it out today. Skipper, Friend or Foe, a Reading with Your Kids certified great read by Kelly Sanchez. Joining us right now from the absolutely beautiful state of Colorado. And I know that because I was just there. Please welcome to the show the author of a great middle grade novel. It's called The Lost Colors. It's the first in the Adventures of Caitlin and Rio series. Please welcome to the show Sally Alexander. Hey, Sally, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much, Jed, for having me on your show.
I'm so excited because we had a chance before we started talking for me to just gush on about how much fun I had driving through the state of Colorado and how beautiful it was.
And it is a beautiful state, especially now, you know, with the beautiful fall foliage. We are having just beautiful conditions. I actually had my niece visiting from Australia, and we took her up to the mountains, and she was just blown away. It is truly beautiful. yeah, I highly encourage people to come and have a look at our beautiful fall foliage. It is stunning. It really is.
Yeah, it really was. And one of the things that I was really impressed, just blown away by is here in New England, we have lots of foliage and the leaves turn. But in Colorado, it was really the first time I noticed the pine, the evergreens. It's kind of like they had blonde highlights. They went to the hairstylist to get blonde highlights through their green branches, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah. So obviously we don't have the type of fall foliage that you guys have in New England, but it has its own special beauty, I think. Especially when you have, up in the mountains, you have, a grove of aspen that is just turning that beautiful golden color. And then they're right next to the very dark evergreen of the pine trees in the forest. And it's just something very special about it. And I really love it. It's a beautiful state. In my humble but biased opinion.
Well, I have to agree with you. And what a coincidence. We're talking about the beauty of Colorado and the beauty of the fall colors. And now you and I are going to be talking about the lost colors. We
are. Yes. Fancy that, right? So I guess I should just share with you about what the book is about. Mm-hmm. And I guess we can just jump in if that's okay.
Absolutely,
with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Lost Colors is the first book in a series, as you mentioned in your wonderful interview, and in your wonderful introduction, rather. And so what happens in the Lost Colors is that Caitlin, who is a little girl, she's about 11 years old. Mm-hmm. She's woken up in the middle of the night by her cat, Rio, and something really, really strange has happened. And there's a silver light that's come over in the bedroom and sucked all the colors out of her world. But not only has it sucked all the colors out of the world, it's also done something very peculiar to her wonderful cat, Rio. It's actually turned Rio into a talking cat, and he is a talking cat with superpowers. And so that's how the book starts. And really we, as the story develops, we try and find out, with Caitlin, what is going on. They discover what has happened, and they find out that there is this rogue experiment that has gone awry, and there is this criminal mastermind called McDougal, who's going to do something really dastardly with all the colors that he has captured. And it's really up to Caitlin and her beautiful, wonderful talking cat with superpowers, Rio, and their two best friends, to really, save the world and restore colors. And so that's sort of the adventure, and that's how it all, gets going and starts off. And I had an enormous amount of fun writing the story, and I do hope readers enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it.
I don't know if I had to make a choice between living in a world with colors or living in a world where my cat could speak to me and had superpowers. That would, especially as a 12-year-old, that would be a hard choice to make, I think.
Yes, I agree with you on that. But what we find as part of the story is in restoring the colors, and there's quite a bit that has to go on, and they have to investigate, and it's a little bit of a mystery as to, they have to find things out and they have to do their own problem solving. Is we're not entirely sure at the end when the colors when we get a resolution, whether that change that's going to revert Rio back to just being a normal cat. So that's a little bit up in the air at the very end. But what is interesting is, and I had a lot of fun with this, is Caitlin can see the world for what it is, and that is that all the colors have been removed. But when she goes around asking various other people whether they've seen, can they see that all the colors have gone, nobody else notices that there's anything wrong. And that's also can often be a difficult position for anybody to be in, is when you know that something is wrong, but everybody else thinks everything is normal. So that's another problem that Caitlin has to go through, is to try and figure out how does she convince her friends that she's not making up the story, that this is what's happened and they need to help her. And so there's a little bit of having to deal with that as well. Some conflict that happens and some conflict resolution that happens throughout the story. But that was a lot of fun, is trying to think of a character who is convinced and knows that something's wrong, but nobody else thinks something is wrong. So there's a bit of conflict there.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a fun experience writing this book. What was it that inspired you?
So this is a bit of a sad story. This is going back to 2019. I had a kitten called Rio, who is actually the inspiration of this book and this series. And he got really sick, and he had a really nasty disease, and we ended up losing him. And I don't know, I'm just such a complete softie when it comes to my fur babies. It was really, really horrible. I mean, there's nothing worse than losing your fur baby, whether it's a cat or a dog, but when it's a kitten, it's really, really hard. And I was just feeling quite devastated, and I was fiddling along in the basement trying to tidy stuff up, and I came across a manuscript that I had written, about 20 years ago, about a girl and her pig. And I read it again, and I'd forgotten all about it, and I thought to myself, well, this would be a really good story to write. Instead of a pig, write about a cat. And then write about, this is my kitten that I lost. So Rio in the story is, in fact, inspired by my kitten that I lost. And so it was a lot of fun, in a way, keeping that fur baby alive in the stories, and make the cat sort of larger than life. Talking cat, has superpowers, all that kind of stuff. So that was a kind of a sad way that this started, but it's been a lot of fun continuing with the series.
What a beautiful way to remember a cat or anybody, to keep that memory alive and introduce Rio to kids all around the world, and helping them fall in love with a creature that you really loved.
Yeah, it always chokes me up, but that's I just want to make sure everybody understands that these are not sad stories.
Oh no.
They're there to be inspiring and exciting. There's a lot of excitement and adventure and things like that. But yeah, I'm thrilled that my wonderful kitten is sort of living in these stories, and it's just a tribute, to one of my fur babies.
Yeah. Now, you were sharing with me before we started that you're originally from South Africa, and then you told us you have family in Australia. Your family is truly a global family. I'm wondering, does a story like The Lost Colors, is that something that kids in South Africa and Australia and New Zealand and the UK and other countries, are they going to be able to relate to it the same way kids in the States will be able to?
I hope so. When I wrote the story, I'm obviously coming at it from my background, and I'm not American by birth. So I'm probably bringing with, into the story and imbuing in the story a lot of what my childhood was like. So I think it is translatable, if that's a word, to other English speaking or even non-English speaking communities. One of the things that I tried to do with this book is and the series is I try to take ordinary suburbia, because that's where I currently live, is ordinary suburbia, which you always think of suburbia as just kind of boring and, it's where families are and all that kind of stuff. But what I was trying to do with this is take ordinary suburbia and think about how to make it different or how to make it magical. And so that's where a lot of the story is set in ordinary suburbia, but there's a lot of magic and imagination that comes through in what Caitlin and Rio and her friends have to do.
Yeah. Well, I think suburbia gets a bad rap because, it is. People, it's the suburbs, it's boring. It's, a strip mall here and the Olive Garden and the same restaurants and all the different suburban towns. And I love the Olive Garden, by the way. But, but suburbia is where family is really celebrated, where family, family's celebrated in the cities, but family is what suburbia is all about. And I think that's, for me, my family is the most magical part of my world.
Agreed. And what's so lovely about my neighborhood, and I'm sure my neighborhood is very similar to a lot of neighborhoods, here in the U.S. and all over the place, is, you'll have, homes where you'll have young families. You might have homes where you'll have a retired couple or grandparents. And what I really love is how I can look out my window when I'm riding and I'll see kids on their bikes, riding around and playing and all that kind of stuff. And it's just, it is, I think you're absolutely right. It is a symbol of family. Now, that's not to say that it's the only symbol of family that's out there, but I think your point is well taken.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that what's going on in your neighborhood. Here in the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, in the southwest corner of Boston, we've been here for 25 years. And when we moved in, we were the young couple with the young kids, with a 2 and a 4-year-old, and all of our, a lot of the neighbors around us were elderly, and our kids grew up with the other young kids in the neighborhood. And now my kids are 26 and 29, and suddenly we're looking around, and for the first time in a long time, there's lots and lots of little kids in the neighborhood now. And it's great to see the moms in the strollers and the kids on the scooters. And my beautiful wife and I were walking our dog the other day, and we turned to each other and we said, "Oh, we're the old people in the neighborhood."
Isn't it funny how that happens? You suddenly in your neighborhood, or you go to the store and you suddenly go, wait a minute, I'm now a grandparent age. And just yesterday I was 18, or I felt that way, and how time flies so quickly.
Absolutely. Tell me, did you always dream of writing for kids?
I've always wanted to write, and so the story just ended up becoming a middle grade audience, just I think through a happy accident. And I actually enjoy this audience mainly because, and I'm sure if you're writing for a slightly older audience or even for an adult audience, this could be true. But I find this particularly true for this type of audience, is it gives you freedom and license to really release your imagination. And I don't know if you remember this, but I remember this when I was growing up, how much I loved making up stories and writing stories. I used to really what got me sort of hooked in this whole writing thing. I was about 10 years old, and I decided I was going to write a book of poetry, which I did. And of course I gave it to my mom, because that's what you do. And I've actually still got it somewhere in my shelf. My mom hung on to it all these years. And one of the poems was, I think I must have been lying on the grass, looking up at the sky and looking at the clouds. And I clearly let my imagination loose. And so I wrote this poem, and it's called The Clouds Battle. And I was obviously watching the clouds as the clouds are building up to build up towards a storm. And I my imagination just went crazy. And I think kids, and when we're kids, we have the freedom to really tap into our imaginations. And I think for me, writing for middle grade or writing for kids, it gives you the freedom, sort of liberates yourself to be imaginative and to tap into your imagination. And that's what I love. It sort of takes me back to those days where you could just let it all out. And I think as as adults, we sometimes lose that ability to let our imaginations run free. And so that was what was such fun about writing The Lost Colors and writing the other books in the series, was I was just able to tap into that imagination, and it was just wonderful.
Yeah. Boy, we talk about challenges in our lives, and I think losing that freedom to be imaginative is a really big challenge, and something that we should fight against.
I agree. I think doesn't matter how old you are. I think sometimes we need to have more opportunities just to let our imaginations free, or sometimes just to be silly. Mm-hmm. Just be silly. Yes, you're an adult and you have to pay the mortgage and you've got to worry about your job and parenting and, whether it's a fur baby or a normal, a normal human child. But, sometimes I think we just need to let ourselves play, let ourselves imagine. I think that's so important. I think we need that, especially in this day and age. We need those opportunities.
Yeah. And imagine going through the pandemic without an imagination, without being able to imagine when it would end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really depressing. And I mean, we talk about the pandemic and what people have gone through, and I know, it was really tough on everybody. And I know, mental health has been a huge problem with people having to go through the pandemic. And I guess the lesson is that as humans, we are not designed to be cut off from other humans. We really are not. We really need to keep those connections, and that's hard, and it can be sad as well.
Yeah. We can lose the colors, but we can't lose each other.
I agree. I like it.
Yes. Hey, I would like it if you could tell everybody where we can go to find out more about The Lost Colors and more about you. So,
please visit my website. It's very easy. It's at www.sallyalexander, that's SALLYALEXANDER, or one word, .com. And please, feel free to visit me on my website. Happy to, have anybody want to chat with me about the Lost Colors and the writing process. I'm always eager to hear from readers, so please contact me at my website.
We've had a wonderful time speaking to the author of The Lost Colors, the first book in the Adventures of Caitlin and Rio series. It's a great middle grade series, a great series of middle grade novels from our guest, Sally Alexander. Hey, Sally, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Jed. I really have appreciated this opportunity, and it was so nice to meet you.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Jen Wendt. She'll be here to celebrate Josie's busy calendar. It's a self-care starter kit. That's happening on the next episode of the podcast. Hey, if you're the author of a fantastic children's book, please do check out our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click in the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how we can help you celebrate your book to the world. There are a number of ways that we can help you get the word out about your book. You can be a guest here on the podcast. You can submit your book to our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read panel. You can also take part in our monthly promotion programs. Right now we have a fantastic holiday promotion program. It's not too late to join in. We'll promote your book through commercials on the podcast, messages to our over 100,000 social media followers, and also display your book on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards throughout the months of November and December. Learn all about that and more by going to readingwithyourkids.com, clicking on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page, and scrolling on down to the various services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Chris, we're going to start by thanking our guest, Sally Alexander. Please be sure to check out The Lost Colors. Also want to thank our sponsors, our friend, Kelly Sanchez. Be sure to check out Skipper, Friend or Foe. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. We also want to thank our friends at Candlewick Press. Their new book, Namaste is a Greeting, is absolutely wonderful. I want to thank my absolutely wonderful team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Mirabella Q, Jordan Saley, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my absolutely wonderful and beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank my absolutely wonderful audience, and that includes you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. And always remember, Namaste. That means that you matter. You matter to us. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.